Okay, so let's look at your planning your return to work. It's going to be critical that any business has a documented plan on how they are going to return to work. And that may be stating the obvious, but the key element here in terms of health and safety legislation is that it starts your audit trail to start to reflect whether you as a business have done everything that could be reasonably expected to be done, everything that's reasonably practical to be done within the guidance that's given. So the plan is an integral part of that process. If you followed the guidance and done everything that you could reasonably expected to create a COVID secure workplace, then that's going to put you in a more robust position to allay some of the anxieties that businesses have about liabilities in the future. So when we look at that plan, again, nominate your return to work team. Again, depending on the size of the business, that will depend on the size of that team, obviously. But we would recommend that, even if you've got only one or two departments, include department representatives in drafting that team plan up, because you'll see later on that you will need to do some pre-visits to the workplace. And if you're able to do that with the team heads of departments or managers that are responsible for those areas, it's going to be a lot easier to win hearts and minds to the people that actually report to them. Have a leader for that team. Now that might be you as the senior manager or director, or it may be someone that you nominate as a project leader, but you need a go-to person who starts to own that team plan, that return to work plan, and know all of the individual elements that make that up. That individual is going to be very important in the future, because that individual effectively is going to become your go-to person for your COVID-19 kind of secure workplace knowledge resource. So you do need a leader for that team. One of the initial questions that you need to pose yourself as a business is, what type of return is it? Is it a full return to work? Is it a partial return to work? Is it a phased return? And there are lots of different elements that are going to inform your decision on that. It could be simply the availability of materials. Your supply chain isn't robust enough at this stage, in which case it can't be a full return to work. It could be that once you review your risk assessments and look at the social distancing requirements in conjunction with the activities within your business, that you simply conclude that you can't return to work with a full staff resources. It may be that you need to reduce staff resources and look at different shift patterns just to satisfy social distancing requirements. In addition to that, you need to look at whether you're permitted to open. We would still recommend that you go through the full process of planning a return, even if you're not on that list, because that list will change. And it will put you in a very robust position to be able to be agile, to respond to the fact that you can open. In that decision-making process, you do need to include pre-visits to your premises. You should be doing that anyway, in line with your insurance requirements. For instance, in our business, we're visiting our premises once a week, check for leaks, doing critical kind of maintenance activities to ensure that we're complying with our office insurance. Timescales for each of the return, whether it's phased or whether it's a full return. Again, look at the timescales within the plan. Segment your plan against those timescales. It's going to be very important, as we'll see later on, to reflect this plan in a communication plan to all of your stakeholders. Having the key timescales that everybody has bought into is going to be critical. So that needs to be an integral part of that plan. What are the work activities for each stage of that plan? This is probably the most important element of the pre-work that you'll do, because this will drive the risk assessments that you need to focus on that are activity related, that you'll need to make COVID-19 secure. So work activities, what are the work activities for each stage of the return? And how do they change if you start to increase your level of return to work, either in terms of staff numbers or activity levels? Resources, again, perhaps an obvious one, but that must include supply chain, the timescales for getting materials in place, the work equipment that you might need. Again, when you review the risk assessments, it may actually identify that you need additional work equipment to work within the COVID-19 guidelines. There's going to be supply chain issues potentially with ordering that and getting that in time. Communication and announcement of the plan to all of the stakeholders, staff, suppliers and customers. So that really is a pre-return plan, a return to work. So as you're returning, updating that plan, and then continuing with the process of information after you return. We've all kind of discussed the mental health issues. For some employees, returning to work in itself is going to be a significant anxiety. And actually the way that you communicate your plan and what you've done and the way that you involve your staff, and actually we'll talk about that later on with risk assessments, will be critical in terms of hearts and minds. So again, agree a frequency within your return to work team. How often are you reviewing the plan? How often are you communicating the plan? And then implement the plan. Again, as we said, it's your audit trail. Ensure that you've agreed review frequencies, how you adjust the plan, and how you maintain communication. Again, within our kind of health and safety community, we follow a very simple plan, do, check, act kind of mantra. Apply that to the plan. Document the decisions. And again, it's something that we're going to repeat all the way through. It's going to be very important to keep a documented audit trail of the decisions you've made, particularly the decisions you've made as a result of consultation with the staff and how that has influenced what you're doing. Creating that audit trail in that COVID-19 file that your return to work team leader has got, again, is a key element in terms of your ability to comply with the guidance that's been issued.